Hey Dunchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and it is time for the 17th edition of Rapid Fire Reviews, the series where I talk about albums and EPs that I didn't get time to do full reviews of. A lot of this music is from very early 2017, so I apologize for not getting this Rapid Fire review out sooner. It's just a lot of other reviews came in priority to this one for me. I will be very happy though to finally get some thoughts out about these albums and EPs. First up, we have the highly requested EP from Herobust called Vertebreaker. I can say I wasn't a massive fan of this EP's name or its artwork. I thought they were kind of cheap and a little bit cheesy, but I think the EP itself was pretty decent. Herobust's concept with this EP seemed to be him kind of trying to combine trap with its literal and original sense with a more modern take on the genre. You've got him flowing from these auto-tune mumble rap verses into these much harder hitting kind of dubsteppy hybrid trap drops. In a way though, I kind of feel like this EP saves listeners from spending a pretty penny on seeing a DJ like Herobust or Nightmare because their mixing style is generally kind of in this format. But beside that, I mean, if you're really into this style, chances are you're going to like this EP a lot. I found a lot of enjoyment in certain parts of this EP. I really like the more experimental, I felt like more metallic sounding songs like the title track as well as Dirt Heater T. I personally couldn't get into the more slower moving tracks on this EP like Movement, but regardless, I think this EP was fairly solid. Not among my favorites this year, definitely not among my least favorites though. Next up we have a bit of a more lengthy EP by KRANE. This one is called Sessions. KRANE is actually one of my personal favorites in the current and kind of up and coming trap and bass scene, and I'd love to talk about him a little bit more in depth than this in the future. I remembered KRANE at one point saying that he would have an album coming, so hopefully that's happening at some point this year so I can get a little bit more in depth with him. But for now we got a pretty solid EP. Just like with Herobust, I think one of the coolest things that this EP brings to the table is its concept, and its concept is pretty well structured. With this EP, KRANE basically went underground into the depths of SoundCloud and found what were, in his opinion, some of the best up-and-comers in trap music and then collaborated with them. In fact, to my surprise, the only collaborators that I actually recognized on this very expansive list were Denmo and Jupe. This EP ends up turning out to be a very solid one. I think KRANE brings the consistent quality with every single track on this EP. I don't think there was a single track I really disliked. The first time around, I had a very hard time getting into Sakura, that Denmo collaboration, but you know, then I kind of got used to it. I personally enjoy the track a lot at this point. But you know, overall this EP is pretty great. It brings some very talented up-and-comers into the limelight, and it also is able to show off KRANE's very wide array of production abilities. I would definitely suggest this EP. Next is the newest short album by C418 called either Dief or Dief. I'm not totally sure on that pronunciation. Ironically, I wasn't a huge fan of C418's 2 Years of Failure album, but I feel like this album followed up very nicely to that. I thought it was very interesting that C418 decided to put this album at 90 beats per minute the whole way through on every single track, but it results in a very pretty, arguably even beautiful, a very relaxing, very atmospheric album. In all honesty, I'd say that I prefer this album over a large majority of C418's albums, although I wouldn't necessarily put it above Minecraft Volume Beta or 148. Definitely go check this one out, especially if you need some really relaxing brain music. This one's really great. Next one that I'm going to talk about is the Everything Remixed pack from Lido. As you guys know, Everything was my album of the year for 2016, and seeing a big remix package for that album kind of threw me off a lot. Although most of these remixes individually, at least to me, were pretty successful as standalones, I felt like this package was a little bit off, especially because Everything had 11 fantastic tracks on it and only 5 of them got touched on this package. So as a whole album, this thing is kind of hard to dive into and listen through in one solid listen, but I would say there are some good ones to dig up in here. I thought both of the City Bike remixes were very experimental, very phenomenal. Lido got Minnesota for this package. He got Brass Tracks, who are the masterminds behind Chance the Rapper's No Problem. And I'm not the biggest fan of Alice in Wonderland, but I ended up enjoying her crazy remix a lot more than I thought I would. Like I said, definitely worth checking out, even if it's just to find a couple new favorites. And lastly, we have the newest EP from LoneMoon called Solstice, which is out on Chime's imprint Rushdown. The current state of LoneMoon's music kind of has a bit of a bipolar feel to it, where LoneMoon can't seem to decide if he wants to go straight into hip-hop music or kind of stay in electronic music, and finding middle ground seems to have been very hard for him. With his last album, Apollo 18, being so heavily, so full-on hip-hop, I didn't expect him to kind of come back back into the dubstep direction, and that just happened to happen with Solstice. Although I wouldn't necessarily say there's anything especially hard hitting on this EP, with the exception to the Chime collaboration Celestial. In other places on this EP, LoneMoon's production tends to have some friendly callbacks to the sounds of Amaranth, an album that I personally liked a lot, so that was nice kind of seeing those sounds back on this EP in some spots. Strangely enough, my favorite track on this EP was the very oddly titled Closer Space Interlude. It's a very melodic dubstep track. Don't know why it was titled the way it was. Maybe this track is some kind of interlude to whatever LoneMoon's next EP or album is going to be. Like I've said a million times before though, LoneMoon's got a decent amount of talent in electronic music, and he's got a decent amount of talent in hip-hop music, and if he's able to find some middle ground in both of those genres, if he's able to create an album or an EP that plays with his strengths on both of those genres, that would be absolutely fantastic. I'd love to see him do that, but we have yet to get that, and that doesn't show up in this EP either. And yeah, that's about all I have to say for today's edition of Rapid Fire Reviews. And probably expect another one of these coming out within the next few weeks, as there is always more material that I have fallen behind on and need to catch up with. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed at least this edition of Rapid Fire Reviews. Anyway, you can find all the Spotify links for those albums and EPs down in the description below. As always, I'm Landon Remixes. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you later. Peace.